What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we are hopping into a 10-team full PPR mock draft for the 2023 fantasy football season. For today's mock draft, I will be drafting from the 1.8. This is going to be a 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex, kicker, defense, and 5 bench spot format. It's mock draft season here at the channel. By the end of the month, I will have a video out from every drafting position for an 8-team, 10-team, and 12-team league. So if you guys are looking for other mock draft variations, be sure to check out what we've got on the channel, as well as all of the live streams we've been running. We have gotten through a ton of mocks throughout this off season. But if you don't see what you're looking for, be sure to drop any mock draft requests down below, and I will try my best to get your mock draft requests put on the schedule, as long as you guys are subscribed to the channel. And if you guys are not subscribed yet, I do kindly ask on the way in, you guys hit that subscribe button, go ahead and hit the like. But most importantly, if you guys have any other comments, questions, or concerns pertaining to the upcoming 2023 fantasy football season, let me know down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Without further ado, let's hop into today's video. All right, so like I said, for the purpose of today's video, we are drafting from the 1.8, which, I think is a pretty good draft position going into the season. There's going to be some good running backs that kind of fall to that range, and if not, there's going to be a plethora of wide receivers to choose from as well. So you can kind of look at the beginning of this draft with whatever strategy you want. Do you want to go hero running back? Do you want to go double hero running back? Do you want to go aggressive at wide receiver to start your draft? Do you want to bounce back between the running back and the wide receiver position? Whatever you want to do, I feel like it's pretty open from the 1.8. The best value on the board for the purpose of today's mock is going to be at the wide receiver position. I'm not going to pass up Tyreek Hill at the 8th overall spot. If Bijan falls out to the 1.8, if Eckler's there, that might be the area where I start to go hero running back. But if you do want to kind of reach for a running back right there, go Saquon Barkley, go Nick Chubb, maybe Tony Pollard, but he should be there in the second round, you can do that as well. But there's just going to be so much value at the wide receiver position, it might be a little bit difficult for you to make that decision. Nonetheless, I think we'll look at the board here. If we do go running back here, I feel the most comfortable with Saquon. I don't mind Derrick Henry or Tony Pollard as our RB1 as well. But the way the board is looking, I think I'm probably going to be starting this draft with 2 wide receivers. Let's go ahead and grab Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, when we look at things, we're in a great position. Obviously, at the wide receiver spot, we've got Tyreek Hill as our wide receiver 1. Obviously, he still brings a ton of consistency, but he brings that upside to the table as well. And then we got Amon-Ra St. Brown, kind of the breakout season last year, and in line for a ton of targets. There's barely anyone else on this roster outside of, Laporta and Gibbs, who's really going to be catching the ball a ton this year. So Amon-Ra should be in line for a ton of work in your full PPR formats. He should be a top tier target. Both Hill and St. Brown can easily finish as top 5 wide receivers this coming season. But you might be asking, what are we going to do at the running back position now? I'm not going to panic. Yeah, we may have kind of missed out on that top tier of running backs, and I know that's starting to become, something that a lot of fantasy managers are really looking at going into the coming season. But I think there's still a lot of good value at the running back position at the end of the 3rd round, beginning of the 4th round. Guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, if you're really lucky, Jahmyr Gibbs, Najee Harris, Kenneth Walker. There's still a good range of running backs, a good enough range that we can grab a RB1 and still kind of use the hero running back method with, a player who might be a little bit lower in overall rankings, but a player that I think can still easily finish top 10, and he could argue for a top 5 running back going into the coming season. So I think we're in a fine spot. Then we'll kind of evaluate what we're going to do at the 4.3. Possibly get another wide receiver. I know we're already loaded at the position to start, but in your full PPR scoring formats, I want a 3rd wide receiver early on, someone I can trust to have in that flex spot throughout the year. Because, like I said, full PPR, I want a wide receiver in that spot over the running back position. And, there are a lot of people kind of who are a little bit skeptical of like the RB dead zone and mid-round running backs going into this year. But I think there's a ton of value in mid-round running backs this year. So we'll kind of hold off at running back and, or at least at the 4.3. But I do think we can go ahead and go running back here. You can go Najee Harris. I don't have a problem with that. I don't mind ETN here as well. I still think he's going to have a good year. But, even with Zeke going to the Patriots, I'm still in on Ramondre Stevenson. When you look at what he did last year, and don't get me wrong, he's going to lose some goal line touches, but he only had 5 rushing touchdowns last year, okay? 1,000 yards on the ground, 4.9 yards per carry, 69 receptions, 88 targets, 421 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. The value in Ramondre Stevenson last year primarily came from his receiving work. Zeke's not going to take that away, and I'm not really too worried about what Zeke's going to do at the goal line. Don't get me wrong, I acknowledge that Zeke is still a talented player, but, Damian Harris was there last year, got some goal line touches, nothing crazy. Zeke should get more as long as he's healthy. Ultimately, I'm just not panicking on the situation, and I think Ramondre Stevenson is falling at a great value. So I'll take him as a hero running back. This was a player that was going at the end of second rounds, beginning of third rounds, depending on your format, just a few weeks ago. Obviously, Zeke does impact things. I'm acknowledging that, but I think Stevenson's going to be okay, and I think we draft him at his given value while we can. Nonetheless, that flex spot, we filled it with the wide receiver. I'm all in on DJ Moore. I've been all in on DJ Moore ever since he got traded to the Bears. I love him in this range. I think he will at times maybe have some inconsistency, but overall, I think he's going to bring a lot of upside to the table. I think the Bears offense, in terms of their passing offense, is only going to progress this coming season. And I think DJ Moore, ultimately at the price he's going in draft, is completely worth taking that shot on. So I love him right there in the 4th round. Okay, so let's talk about quarterbacks and these 10-man formats, 10-team formats, I should say. I really think, as much as the positional advantage is something that you always want to think about in 10-team formats, I really think you can go late round quarterback, not extremely late, maybe mid-round quarterback, kind of late round quarterback, right on that end tier, but late round tight end as well, and still come out of your drafts with a very good quarterback, very good tight end in these 10-team formats. So obviously, Mahomes at the 4.8, Hurts at the 5.1, Allen at the 5.2, a little bit of a light quarterback draft. Those guys can definitely go earlier, so be careful with that. But ultimately, if those guys fall at the right value, if for some reason they're on the board there at the 4.8, or excuse me, the 5.8, you have to take them, right? I'm still acknowledging that, but I just think, we might be able to hold off to the 7.8, 8.3 and still get a top tier quarterback in Herbert or Lawrence at least. But if we did want to go and select a quarterback here, whether it's Lamar, Burrow, or Fields, I'm okay with that. But I just think we go ahead and we knock out our RB2, and then we turn around. You might call me crazy. We get our 4th wide receiver at 6.3, and I'll tell you why. Okay, we talked about just a few moments ago the importance of having that wide receiver 3 in your flex that you trust. I want a 4th guy on the bench that I trust that can filter into the wide receiver 1, 2, and flex spot if necessary, because bye weeks are going to happen, injuries are going to happen, and full PPR formats, we want that value at wide receiver consistent throughout the year. Okay, I was really hoping that Kenneth Walker would fall here, but that's okay. Christian Kirk's already off the board. I love him as a wide receiver 4, but another player that I really like is Brandon Ayuk. Going into next year, I think Ayuk is the primary target for the Niners. Debo is going to be a factor. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a fan of Debo Samuel going into the year, but Ayuk was your wide receiver 15 last year, just over 1,000 receiving yards, 78 receptions, and 8 touchdowns. Even if he just matches those numbers this coming season, I'm okay with that as my wide receiver 4, player in a consistent offense, an efficient offense. I'll take him all day long right there. Okay, going back to the running back position, there are a couple names I like here, but you know what? We're going to kind of pivot here. We're going to take our quarterback. Okay, I know we talked about going quarterback a little bit later, but I think when you look at this tier of running back right now, Dameon Pierce, Miles Sanders, Alexander Madison, Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, then kind of moving into James Conner, Dalvin Cook, Pacheco, White, Monty. I still think ultimately we're probably going to miss out on a couple of those guys, but I don't really see a massive change in tier. I like Miles Sanders a lot. I love the upside of DeAndre Swift, and ultimately I still like Alexander Madison and Dameon Pierce because I think both guys will be consistent this year. But I just think the upside of the quarterback position, getting Justin Fields, stacking him with DJ Moore, brings better value to this team as a whole. So, like I said, you can hold off a bit at the quarterback position in 10-team formats and still come out of your draft with Herbert or Lawrence or whatever. But, looking at the board, there are 4 teams in front of me who do have a quarterback, so we're not at a huge risk. But there are 3 teams without a quarterback, so that still leaves Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Fields as players who could have been drafted if we did not take Fields right there. So really, when you're looking at the quarterback position right there, I don't mind Herbert or Lawrence over Justin Fields if you're more comfortable with them, but I'm all in on Justin Fields. I think he's going to improve as a passer. He was a great passer in college, and I just believe in his progression as a quarterback, similar to players like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, guys who are maybe a rusher first and then kind of progress in their passing game. I think Fields is going to be right up there. I'm not saying he's going to have a season like Hurts had last year or finish as the number one overall quarterback, like Allen has in past couple years. But ultimately, I still like Fields quite a bit, and I like the upside that he brings to the table. So, all right, there goes a couple running backs to wrap up the 6th and enter us into the 7th round. My top target right now is DeAndre Swift. A lot of people don't like to hear it, but I just love the upside that Swift brings to the table. Even if we don't get him, I mean, at the end of the day, I just think the Eagles are going to be able to utilize his skill to its maximum. I mean, I've talked about this in like every mock draft I've done because he just always falls to me as a RB2 or RB3 for the most part. And, looking at, team 5 here, they need a RB2. He could go right here with Kamara as the next highest rated running back. And there he goes. But yeah, I'm just a fan of Swift. If he falls to you at the right value, go out and grab him. All right, let's take Rachaad White. He's another running back in this range that I absolutely love as a RB2. I like Monty, who just went off the board as well. I think he's a really good value in this range. But in full PPR formats, we talked about Ramondre Stevenson, 69 receptions last year. Rachaad White in his rookie season with Leonard Fournette as a starter in front of him for a majority of the season, or at least the first half of the season, still had 50 receptions. Baker Mayfield checked the football down, had the highest check down rate of any quarterback last year, a smaller sample size compared to other quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, but ultimately Rachaad White in a position in an offense that'll probably be playing from behind a lot, he could catch 80 passes this year. It's not crazy to say whatsoever. So like him right there quite a bit. With this 3rd running back, which is what we're going to do here, there are some good wide receivers. I mean, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert on the board, but I think RB3 is the most important thing. Isaiah Pacheco, James Conner, pick whoever you like right here. I mean, both of those guys have some limited upside and kind of for the exact opposite reasons. James Conner, because the offense he's on is not very good. But at the same time, Conner has essentially no competition whatsoever at the running back position going into the year, and the Cardinals are probably going to have to feed him because at least until Kyler comes back, they're going to struggle in the passing game. On the other side, I really like Isaiah Pacheco. I've drafted a ton of Pacheco throughout the offseason, but Pacheco is limited in the sense that his offense is so good. Andy Reid draws up these plays. I mean, they ran the football the least amount in the red zone last year compared to any other team because you got Mahomes, you got all these different playmakers, and they all thrive within the system. When they get into that range of the 20-yard line, they're not always going to run the football. I get that. But at the same time, he's still tied to a very efficient offense that's going to score a lot of points this year. So I still like Pacheco quite a bit. I know there's been some kind of buzz around Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You still have Jerick McKinnon there. I understand all that, but I've just been a fan of Pacheco throughout the offseason. In that RB3 range, I absolutely love him. All right. Moving into the 9th round, we're looking at Fields, Ramondre Stevenson, Rachaad White, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, and James Conner. Very happy with this start. We want to keep an eye on the tight end position, okay? We're kind of breaking into the tier where I'm paying a little bit more attention. Evan Ingram, Pat Freiermuth, David Njoku, Cole Kmet. Okay, I don't want to oversaturate us into the Bears offense too much, but I really do like the value you can get with Cole Kmet, who was the tight end 7 in fantasy last year. And you guys have already heard me talk about the Bears throughout this video. So I do like Cole Kmet as a late round tight end, and sometimes he falls out to like the 11th round, but we'll keep an eye on the tight end position. I mean, Pat Freiermuth, quite frankly, is a player that I prefer out of that range. I just think he's going to be very consistent on the season. But let's take a look. looking at available wide receivers, there are some names I really like. Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton, Sky Moore, Romeo Dobbs. There are a lot of good wide receivers available, and we still need a RB4 as well. Running back is the thinnest position right now, so let's go ahead and pick up whether it's Antonio Gibson or A.J. Dillon, whoever you like better here. And quite frankly, Brian Robinson is fine as well. But I'm going to go ahead and pick up Antonio Gibson. Like I said, I mean, in that range, whoever you prefer is perfectly fine. Whoever you think is going to be the most productive. You know, we've kind of, for the most part, outside of James Conner, who does have some pass catching upside still, we've kind of gone for pass catching upside with all of our running backs in full PPR formats. I'm completely fine with that. Now at the 10.3, we can do one of two things. We can go ahead and take our tight end and Pat Freiermuth or even Evan Ingram, David Njoku, whoever you prefer here. Most of the teams in front of us have a tight end. Some of these guys might go double tight end. But I'm going to hold off for now. Let's take the best available wide receiver, whoever you think it is. I like Cortland Sutton. I like Sky Moore. I like Romeo Dobbs as well. But I'm going to risk it a little bit here and go for some upside and go Sky Moore. I mean, I think Cortland Sutton's actually going to be pretty consistent this year. I get it. The Broncos were bad last year. Sutton wasn't great. But he wasn't that bad either. Okay, his ceiling was very low. But he still gave you double-digit fantasy points in full PPR every game except for 4 in games where he was healthy last year. He missed essentially 3 games. So, you know, the ceiling, not high. I mean, he hit 19 points. That was his highest on the season, But most weeks you knew you were getting 11, 12, 13 points out of Cortland Sutton. Do I love that? No, but as my wide receiver 5 on my bench, if I'm in a bad situation, whether due to injuries or bye weeks, if I can throw him in the flex, at least I know I'm getting double digits there. So Sutton in this range, I like. Sky Moore, you know, when we look at this Chiefs wide receiver room, it's very interesting between Kadarius Toney, who should be back week 1. You got Rashee Rice, Richie James. MVS is still going to play quite a bit this year. Don't get me wrong. You got Justin Ross. You got all kinds of names in here. And, of course, Kelsey. I mean, Noah Gray's floating around. McKinnon catches the ball out of the backfield. But, you know, Sky Moore has primarily worked with the first team throughout the offseason. Once again, Toney hasn't been there since his injury. So, but at the end of the day, you know, Sky Moore should be that slot receiver, that guy who brings a lot of value in full PPR formats. So, absolutely love him in this range. A little bit of a risk. You look at that rookie season. It was pretty bad, but this is a complex offense. He was asked to do a lot. He started to kind of get into his rhythm throughout the playoffs, including the Super Bowl. So I still think the plays will be there for Sky Moore. And in that wide receiver 5 range, I don't mind him whatsoever. So we'll take Sky Moore. I will note I kind of prefer Zay Flowers in that range. So he gets taken at the 10.2. If Flowers was there at the 10.3, it's a smash. But I was looking at those two teams, you know, in front of me at the 1.9, 1.10. They were kind of low at running back, and I wanted to go ahead and take the running back that I had the most confidence in Antonio Gibson. And, of course, you know, those two teams at the 1.9, 1.10, I mean, 3 running backs taken between them before we selected again at the 10.3. So, you know, I knew looking at wide receivers between Zay Flowers, Sky Moore, Cortland Sutton, Romeo Dobbs, that there were enough players that I liked that we could go ahead and take that risk and go running back before wide receiver. But nonetheless, moving along to the 11.8, 12.3, we've got a tight end spot to fill. We kind of risked it here. Maybe Njoku falls out to us. Team 4 does not have a tight end. Like I told you, Team 1 went double tight end, and I don't blame them with Darren Waller's injury history. Not going to be crazy surprised if some of these teams go double tight end. You know, you got Kyle Pitts here. Sometimes people like to select a second tight end behind him. But nonetheless, David Njoku and Colt Kmet are still available. As long as we get one of those guys, I'm happy. I kind of prefer Njoku right now because, I mean, I really like Colt Kmet, but like I said, I just don't want to get oversaturated into that offense. You know, if they struggle during a week or whatever, you know, not every team's going to be like the Eagles last year where they're just absolutely balling out week in and week out. And it doesn't matter if you draft multiple players from their team. So you just want to be careful with that. So probably going to go Njoku here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Romeo Dobbs first because I really want him on this team. I love him as a wide receiver 6. There goes David Njoku. And now the question is, does Cole Kmet make it back to us or not? I was kind of surprised. I wasn't expecting Mark Andrews a very consistent tight end, so I wasn't really expecting Team 9 to go tight end there. And even Team 10, Kittle's a guy who a lot of the times people will draft a second tight end behind, similar to Darren Waller, because Kittle has that injury history. So kind of risked it there to make sure I got the wide receiver 6 that I wanted. And we'll see if it pays off. If I get Cole Kmet, it's still okay. And if not, some other options we could go like Dalton Kincaid here, Dalton Schultz. I was liking Greg Dulcich a lot, but, kind of lately it's been a little murky what his exact role is going to be. But, hey, like I said, you don't always want to oversaturate into an offense, but today we're doing it. We'll take Cole Kmet. You just kind of can note there, right? If you're not crazy high on Sky Moore in the 10th round, you can go Ingram or Freiermuth. If you don't want to necessarily take that risk and take Romeo Doubs, Team 10 went double wide receiver. I knew there was some risk there. You could take Njoku before Doubs as well. And even if, there's different wide receivers that you guys prefer in those ranges, you can just make a note. Instead of going wide receiver in the 10th or 11th round, you go tight end first. But hey, maybe you take a different quarterback at 6.3 or a different wide receiver at 4.3. And then at the end of the day, the Cole Kmet value looks really good to you. And like I said, you could, go for a little bit of risk and go Dalton Kincaid, who's, still tied to a good offense. The Bills spent high draft capital on him, still in a good position, a huge versatile skill set that he brings to the table. So Kincaid in this range, a little bit riskier, but maybe you can go like Kincaid and Tyler Higbee, Kincaid and Dalton Schultz, whatever you want to do. Nonetheless, I'm still happy with this team. Romeo Doubs, just a quick note, player I've been talking a lot about the past couple weeks, and in the preseason and some of these joint practices, we're really seeing Doubs' value come to life, as well as most of the pass catchers for the Packers starting to look like they're in a pretty good position. Watson's going early, 4th rounder in most drafts, really in 10 and 12 team formats. But Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed are guys that we really need to start considering, because this Packers offense is starting to look like it's been clicking throughout the preseason. Romeo Doubs, all the reports early on were that he's been Jordan Love's favorite target. That doesn't really look like it's been changing throughout the preseason. He brings a ton of that PPR style value to your team, and I love him as a wide receiver 6. All right, so essentially to wrap things up, we're going to draft a kicker and defense. Doesn't really matter to me what order you go. I love the Ravens defense. I love the Patriots defense. Both available here. Let's go with the Ravens. Either selection is great. Then we'll just select a kicker. We're not going to do extensive breakdowns of the kickers and defenses, but ultimately, the one thing I will say is just make sure you're not reaching. You don't want to draft Justin Tucker before you filled your bench with skill position players. You don't want to draft the Niners or Cowboys defense before you've drafted all your running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends. So at the end of the day, you can always stream the kicker and defensive team position. Don't stress about it. Okay, let's take a look at the team, and then we'll wrap up today's video. So Justin Fields at quarterback, Cole Kmet at tight end. Let's hope the Bears have a good year. But realistically, I think they will, but there will be another tight end who kind of merges on the waiver wire the first couple of weeks if you're worried about it. I still think Kmet is going to be a top 10 tight end this year. I think he definitely showed that he can do that last year, and ultimately this offense should be more efficient this coming season. So I think we're good at quarterback and tight end. We kind of went hero running back, but sometimes I do it a little bit later than the 1st or 2nd round. Kind of depends on what your conviction on Ramondre Stevenson is. Before Zeke was added to that backfield, obviously he was a guy that a lot of fantasy managers were going after. I think he's a good value at the 3.8. Rachaad White is our RB2. Connor and Gibson on the bench. I can live with that. Our upside comes from the wide receiver position and the quarterback position in this build. I'm okay with that. Full PPR format. Whether you play one flex or double flex, this is a good build overall. Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Sky Moore, and Romeo Doubs at the wide receiver position. So essentially our starting lineup would be Justin Fields, Cole Kmet, Ramondre Stevenson, Rachaad White, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, then DJ Moore in the flex. If you play a double flex, Brandon Ayuk in the second flex. If you don't, Brandon Ayuk on the bench with James Conner, Antonio Gibson, Sky Moore, and Romeo Doubs. Ravens defense number 7 last year, Jason Myers, top 5 kicker last year. Beautiful team. I would be perfectly happy going into the coming season in a single or double flex full PPR format with this squad. So be sure to let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of today's draft, what you guys may have done differently. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm still taking mock draft requests, but my schedule's almost completely full. But be sure to check out some of the other mocks and the live streams we've been doing throughout the offseason. You guys might find the exact format you're looking for and the exact draft position you're looking for. And of course, anytime I'm running a live stream, you guys can hop on and ask me any fantasy questions for the upcoming season. But if you can't make it, be sure to drop any comments, questions, concerns you guys have leading up to this coming season. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you guys enjoyed today's video or found it helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that like button on the way out. Check out all our links down below, and that's going to wrap up today's video. So with that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening, and remember, you saw it here on The Catch.